So the way that I wrote the book is that at the end of every single chapter, there's things to do, like literally things to do, whether it be doing meditation, whether it be doing gratitude, whether it be doing setting an intention, whether it be, doing an after action report, whatever it may be, there's actual things to do that are really simple. And they're like the $5 bet in Vegas that earns you like $200, right? They're just like, they take no time, but they have an impact, and they're the biggest bang for the buck. And so that's kind of what I've done in the book, not only using examples of different sport athletes that I've worked with or my own personal story, but also too, like, how do I apply this every single day? And then did I do it? That's the other thing. I think I always talk about the work. When you do the mental work, the work starts working on you. When you do mental work, it's an investment. You're not spending time, you're investing the time to help your brain get a little stronger.
Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Revolution podcast, where conscious leaders unite to unlock their highest potential so we can change the way the game is being played. Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Susan Hobson, and I am so excited to introduce you to my friend and special guest today. Joshua Lifrak, MS, is the author of Win Today and is the director of performance and coaching at Limitless Minds, a mental performance consultancy delivering keynotes and advising individuals as well as small businesses and top multinational firms and businesses, including McDonald's, Novartis, Pfizer, KPMG, and even Amazon. So he's working at the biggest level of corporate like we are. He started his career as a mental conditioning consultant with IMG Academy down in Florida, working with MLB players, NBA and NFL draft picks, as well as the U.S. soccer team and U.S. U17 men's national team, as well as many elite college programs. He then joined the Chicago Cubs as director of their mental skills programming. His work there culminated in the Cubs' 2016 World Series victory, and I can't wait to talk about that. After his stint with the Cubs, he then went on to be the major league mental skills coach for the New York Mets. So he has so much depth and breadth of experience in his well of wisdom. What I love is our alignment in terms of how we're all, both pulling in this context that we have in the sporting world into this whole concept of conscious leadership, which is exactly where I want to drop the puck with you today, Josh. Welcome to the show, my friend. It is so awesome to have you on this mic. How you doing?
I am doing awesome, Susan, but I'm going to be honest with you. You were like, I'm going to drop the puck. And I was like already guarding I was guarding the chicklets. I put the elbow up. I just didn't want to take a, stick to the nose and lose a couple of the teeth up front. So, but now I'm ready. We got through the dropping of the puck. I'm not bleeding anywhere. So we're good to go.
Not yet, at least, right? Elbows up. Here we go. That's our big saying up here north of the border, but we're not going to go there in terms of what that means with my American friends. I love that you and I both see the world through this lens of sports. But where I want to tee us off today is really starting to sink into just how you think about this whole concept of conscious leadership. What does that mean to you, Josh?
Yeah, that means with purpose and on purpose. Okay, that's what it really means to me. That I think that a lot of times human beings, period, let alone leaders, we get to this autopilot mode and we end up living by default versus living by design. And so for me, when I hear the word conscious leadership, it's really about the noticing when I'm not living my vision, my values, and who I want to be in this world. So I think that's what hits me with conscious leadership. It's that catching, it's the catching, the just being, honestly, it's about being aware of the thoughts that I'm thinking.
Yeah, this is obviously where we're going to go today in our flow. My whole area of specialty in the world of coaching in the high performance way is mindset. And that's everything that you just riffed on off the top here. But I want to dig into your backstory so we can contextualize some of this alignment that we have in regards to why we view conscious leadership in that way. So, do you mind sharing a little bit of what inspired you to get into this realm in the first place?
Yeah, it's funny. I know we're gonna talk about the book that I have coming out, Win Today, June 9th it drops, ladies and gentlemen. I know
Woohoo!
we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but in the beginning of that book, I talk about my time after university, where I had a degree in sociology and no path, no direction, no vision. I was just kind of like a snowflake in the wind. I really didn't know where the heck I was going. Ended up in New York City and was working in high-end restaurants, which was
Mm.
an amazing experience. Talk about a performance environment. I mean,
Oh,
we're talking
yeah,
about, the best of
totally.
the best in the world in New York City, right? And so
Hmm.
I was working at a three-star restaurant called Babo. At the time, it was started by Mario Batali. It was the first three-star restaurant
Mm.
ever that was an Italian restaurant in the history of New York. So the really, really famous place. And I was in that world of high-end hospitality for about 10 years. And probably about 6 years through it, I was like, I don't like this is great, but I'm missing something and I need something else. And I was always an athlete growing up. I rode crew in college. I was a cross country runner, played basketball, the whole thing. And sports has always been just a part of my life. And I
Hmm.
missed it. I missed competition. I missed being around it. And so I started searching and I ended up finding sports psychology as a field. I talk about the moment of epiphany was during a mountain bike ride for myself in the woods, and I changed how I was thinking about things and just the shift in going from thinking about, hey, I can do this and being positive to how to do it changed the entire results of the situation. So that was kind of the moment, the epiphany, but really it was just because I love figuring out how people succeed. And success leaves clues, right? Success leaves clues all over the place. So for me, I really wanted to dive into that. And the area that has always intrigued me is the mental side. And so here it was, there's this field called sports psychology. I got a master's degree from Ithaca College in exercise science with the emphasis in sports psych. And I was like, yes, this is the stuff. Like, I don't know about you, Susan, but as you learned about the mental stuff, weren't you just being like, oh my gosh, how come not everybody knows about this? I can't believe that people just don't understand. All I have to do is think differently and my results are going to change. Oh my gosh. Like it was just like this massive, like, wow, and then I just wanted to share it. So the best way to
Hmm.
do that was through this field.
Yeah, I had the exact same response, I actually was kind of pissed off when I got to Princeton and they started talking to me about how 90% of my performance was mental. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, why am I just learning about this for the first time now that I've cracked a top 1% opportunity? Like this, I was thinking about all the girls I played with that were so much more talented than I was, who just couldn't manage the battle between their ears, in terms of their perspective and how they thought that was like affecting how they felt on the ice. And yeah, I became obsessed in my classes once I actually even just heard that stat. So I want to talk about this in regards to you going on this mission to serve these high performance athletes. And you talked about how conscious leadership really is all about that purpose. So I want to understand what the purpose is for you and working at the
Mm.
highest level of pressure and high stakes, and like what mission you're really on to, yeah, help these athletes experience from the mental side of things.
I just personally believe there's greatness in everybody, Susan. And the more of that greatness we can help people pull out of themselves. And I want to be clear on this, right? I'm not the person pulling out their greatness. Their greatness is within them, and their greatness shines when they pull it out of themselves. And so that's always been my mission, is to help people live their fulfilled life. Um, I talk about it all the time. We and I just mentioned it earlier. We can live this life by default, or we can live this life by design. And I think when we design who we want to be in this world, when we design the life that we want to create, then we just thrive, and it's just so freaking fun. I don't know
Hmm.
how else to say it. It's just really, really fun to do. And so, like, even just me jumping on, like, I love this, Susan. I love having this conversation. I love being on podcasts. I love presenting. I love being in front of audiences. I love having one-on-one conversations with people and having them have that aha moment. And that's, those are the things that really like drive me. And, it was really kind of the impetus behind even writing a book. I never thought in my life I would write a book. This was never like, it wasn't like I wasn't like at 16, but like, I'm going to write a book, like this kind of, it kind of like just started happening. And then it became, well, wow, this is really in line with who I want to be in the world. So let's get this thing done.
Let's talk about the book. When Today is the name, and it drops on June 8th, did you say?
June 9th.
June 9th. Okay, so June 9th, and we're going to make sure that you have all the links to where you can find that book in the show notes. But yeah, let's tell our listeners a little bit about this book that you wrote. And so a little bit of the backstory, just in terms of what inspired you to write this now. Like, what was that call you felt to really put the pen to paper in this way?
Yeah, it was the pandemic for me. It was during that period where everybody was just kind of sitting in their home and they didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring, you know? And
Hmm.
I was working at the time for the New York Mets, and we were told to stay at home. I was working remotely. We didn't know if we were going to have a job the next day. Like it was like we didn't know if the season was going to shut down, what was happening.
Hmm.
And so I kind of got into this mindset of like, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I got to win today somehow. And let me figure
Hmm.
out what exactly that is. What's going to be a W for me? In
Hmm.
Chicago, when we would win a game, the Chicago Cubs fly a big W flag in center field over Wrigley
Yeah,
Field, right?
I've
And it
seen it.
flaps at the W flag, right? So I was like, how do I fly the W flag today? And so ultimately, what ended up happening was kind of cool. Was the New York Mets, the HR department, they wanted me to talk to the entire organization. So we're talking about everybody that works in the office up there, everybody that's in the business side, everybody on the baseball side, the people in the Dominican Republic, all over. And so I was honored to talk to them, and they were looking for, a way to kind of get through this crazy time in our history of the world,
Hmm.
again, where we just didn't even know what tomorrow was going to bring. And
Hmm.
so I came up with that concept of like, okay, let's win today. And then through that, and then thinking back and really reflecting on my time in elite sports and talking to a lot of experts and talking to a lot of people that have been highly successful, I came up with these 6 different steps that would really help anybody kind of have a little bit of a scoreboard. And there are things that you can do every day. They're not concepts. I think that that's one of the big issues, Susan, is I think a lot of times in the world of mental training or even leadership coaching and things of that nature, that we get conceptual versus actualizing,
Oh, totally.
right?
Let's
And so
let's
that,
talk about it, because like that
yeah,
to me is like my biggest pet peeve in our industry is just how much of the work that we're doing is still rated completely ineffective because it only like approaches that point of intervention known as the intellectualization of knowledge, right? Not the
yeah.
integration of behavior. So, yeah, let's talk about what that means in terms of your approach in this book.
Well, for me, it always goes back to what I call the can do method. It KAN do. And what
Mm.
that means is actually a breakdown of a formula, which is K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals absolutely nothing. So
Hmm.
you got to do.
Hmm.
You got to do, right?
Hmm.
It's not enough to just kind of know. You actually have to put it into place. So the
Hmm.
way that I wrote the book is that at the end of every single chapter, there's things to do, like literally things to do, whether it be doing meditation, whether it be doing gratitude, whether it be doing setting an intention, whether it be, doing an after action report, whatever it may be. There's actual things to do that are really simple, and they're like the $5 bet in Vegas that earns you like $200, right? They're just like, they take no time, but
Hmm.
they have an impact, and they're the biggest bang for the buck. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of what I've done in the book, not only using examples of different sport athletes that I've worked with or my own personal story, but also too, like, how do I apply this every single day? And then did I do it? That's the other
Hmm.
thing. I think I always talk about the work. When you do the mental work, the work starts working on you. When you
Hmm.
do mental work, it's an investment. You're not
Hmm.
spending time, you're investing the time
Hmm.
to help your brain get a little stronger, right? I'll give
Hmm.
you I'll give you a perfect example. So the first step is define your story. We've already talked about definition a bunch. And what that really is deciding who you're going to be today. Who am I going to be today? Once we do that now, and then you write it down, you have a 48% greater chance of actually being that.
That's
So
right.
for all the listeners out there, do this exercise, right? We're talking about doing and being in action. So here we go, listeners. Here's what we're going to do. Get out a piece of paper and a pen. Decide how you want to be the rest of this day. And being can be anything. It can be engaged. It can be excited. It can be enthusiastic. It can be focused. It can be productive, whatever you want it to be, but just write that down. That's it. That's the exercise. Did I do it? Yes or no? Right. And now, so Susan, who do you want to be today? Let's throw it back to Susan. Besides throwing elbows into my nose, who do you want to be today?
I want to be super conscious and in the flow with my friend Josh as we spread this ripple effect to the world.
I love it. So conscious and in the flow. Love it. Right. So what kind of actions in your brain, what does that look like? If I said, hey, Susan, what does that look like to you? If I was observing you, how would I know you're in the flow?
Yeah, well, I think you probably have to rewind the game tape and see how I teed up the flow before I even jumped on with my friend Josh, right? In terms of me taking my mindful minute to really kind of wipe the slate clean and ground my nervous system so that I could come in the locker room and be fully present and available to whatever it was that my friend Josh was going to bring my way so that I could be responsive and in tune to what it is that could actually build this like really impactful message for our people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's it. That's the way you do it, right? Is you just set that intention and then you live it. Because when you decide what to be, the doing is going to kind of naturally follow. So here I am. I'm going to be, Susan says, I'm going to be in the flow. I'm going to be really present. And what does she do? Oh, she takes about a minute to ground herself before she jumps on the pod. And then whatever we're talking about, she rolls with it. She flows with it because she created that image in her brain. And that's amazing, right? So that's just a quick example of one thing that you'll learn how to do by reading the book.
Yeah, I love this concept. I talk about getting in the mental gym, because working with athletes, I feel like we have such a deep appreciation for getting on the ice and bag skating, right? Or getting in the gym and crushing those weights. And it's like all very action oriented. We understand the value of that investment every single day is this compound effect, right? Of what we're conditioning so that it shows up automatically in the high pressure, high stakes moments. But why the heck do we have such a hard time understanding that the brain is the same? Like, where is that gap coming from in your estimation?
Because Susan, I can look in a mirror and see the growth of my bicep. I can look in a mirror and see the weight that I've lost. I can visually, I can see it. What is tough to see to the untrained eye, I'll say that, is extra confidence, is extra focus, is, it's funny because as I was saying that, I was thinking back to like guys that I've worked with, and I just saw their shoulders change and their body language change. And, it's funny. And so you can actually see it, but you have to look for it. And I think also too, our brains are geared to be negative. Right? This thing called the negativity bias. That's part of our DNA from when we're in the Cro-Magnon era. And so that is a part of it too, is that I think it can be scary for people to be silent, right? Like, what are those thoughts that are going to come flooding into my head if I don't have a phone to look at? It was crazy. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I went to, yesterday was my birthday. Hey,
happy birthday.
My wife took me we went for a spa day, and we were having lunch at the hotel, and we were sitting next to this couple. They didn't get off their phone the entire time. They didn't talk to each other the entire time. And it was like, and my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, we're so lucky. We're so lucky. But it was kind of like heartbreaking in a way, because it wasn't just about those two. I see it all the time that people are not conscious. We talked about conscious leadership. Consciousness is not only being aware of what's inside, but being aware of what's outside too. And when we're here, I feel like I'm on the soapbox right now, Susan. Sorry, but
I
but it's
love
like,
it.
but it's this is it. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. We don't have another one. I don't know.
Mhm.
This is it. So we can either live out loud and we can live out there and we can live, or we can hide. And I think that that's oftentimes our brain is set up to keep us alive, number one, and our brain is set up also to keep us comfortable, number two, right? Both of those are not thriving. Both of those are not thriving. What is thriving is screaming at the top of your lungs in joy and enthusiasm. What is thriving is being so locked in you lose what time it is, and you're just flying, right? What is
Mhm.
thriving is connecting with others and lifting others up and having this cumulative, like, just joy and focus. What's thriving is doing freaking hard things. Doing hard things. That's thriving.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's I don't know. I have no clue what your question was,
It's
Susan.
okay. And
I just I just got excited. I
it's
just got
also
excited.
good as we're talking about the value of getting in the mental gym and doing that
Yes, that's what we were talking about.
brain training, right? Because it's the nature of the beast. Our brain's meant to keep us safe and alive. It takes that job very seriously. But
It
when you
does.
really study how it is set up to do its job from, the way back when, in terms of like how our brains needed to develop in order to survive, it's not really setting us up to thrive in a modern day world. Like everything that you just described in terms of the negativity bias and keeping ourselves in the comfort zone, it's all the enemy of our progress, right? And I think that's what excites both of us in terms of the power of getting conscious in regards to how it is that you're choosing to show up in every single moment to make it count, because that actually is the recipe, right? For flow and realizing peak potential. And it's everything that I feel like is deficit in the world's potential right about now, which is why I'm talking about consciousness in the context of leadership.
Yeah.
But where I want to go with this conversation is you and I work with, leaders and performers at the highest level of pressure and high stakes. So how is it that we're able to thrive in those types of conditions? You're talking about the pandemic and all the uncertainty. And one of the things we've been talking about on this show, Josh, is this whole disruption that we're going through with AI and future generations coming into the workforce. We're in another pandemic in terms of the level of uncertainty that us
Mm.
leaders are all having to navigate in the trenches in the day to day. So I'd love to hear about your experiences working with the Cubs, helping them win a World Series. Like it doesn't get any more high pressure or high stakes than that. So how do we thrive in that type of condition and that type of moment of uncertainty and
Yeah.
pressure?
So there's a couple things. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Right.
Mm.
That's the first thing. So we got to keep growing. And I think there's beauty in growth. Right. I mean, I every morning I go out. You and I just already talked about meditation, Susan, but I live in Florida. So there's a nice little porch here that I sit on in the backyard, and there's a palm tree. And I look at that palm tree and I see like the palm fronds kind of expanding. And it's just like this nice moment for me to ground in.
Mhm.
But, life happens and it keeps moving forward. So we can either choose to join it and continue to grow, or we can stay stagnant and get left behind. Right. So that's the first thing is we have to grow. How did we do it in pressure? Right. How did the Cubbies, how did we overcome this 108-year curse of being the lovable
Mhm.
losers and moving through and again playing really, really well in pressure? Joe Madden, our manager at the time, had a phrase: be present, not perfect. Be present, not
Mhm.
perfect. So I think one of the beauties of our team was we were very present as a unit. Um, they were open to experiences. The players were really um, emotionally astute. They understood their own emotions really well, and they managed them really well. If you ever went back and looked at the some of the video from Game 7 of the World Series, which we ended up winning in extra innings, there's a moment where Anthony Rizzo, our first baseman, is talking to David Ross, our leader, veteran captain of the clubhouse. And he's like, man, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out right now. I'm so nervous. And he goes, yeah, man, just hang on. It gets worse. And I just like those moments are awesome, right?
Mhm.
Because if we hide from them and they shy away from them, then they don't deal with them. And I think
Mhm.
you talked about conscious leadership. We talked about it that's a perfect example. He's super conscious of how he's feeling. He's super
Mhm.
conscious and he's
Mhm.
looking for help. And it was awesome. And that was one of the beauties of that team was
Mhm.
the reason they were able to move through that challenging period of being down 3-1 in the series, losing the lead in the eighth inning, and being able to push through extra innings was because they were so close. And there's strength in numbers. The second step of winning today is build bonds. And so the
Mhm.
more people you have with you that you can rely on, that you can lean on, that you can ask for advice, that you can talk to, that you can, lift up themselves, the better off you're going to be. So that's
Mhm.
kind of how we did it. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we
That's
did it.
I know that's why I love team sports, and
Yeah.
why I miss being in the locker room so much is like that deferred pressure. Like there's something very magical that happens in the locker room where you're all going through it in the same moment of presence together, right?
Yeah. It gives you strength, right?
Well, yeah, I definitely think in my experience, that there was always like a backdraft, right? To like the energies that I felt in that locker room. And I mean, that could be a positive thing or it could be a negative thing. But when you get to play in these championship locker rooms, right? In
Yeah.
terms of these, like I got to, play in a we were the national champions and we won the NWHL Cup my first year playing professional women's hockey. And so that was like a very, very special locker room. And like I had such a backdraft every single day from my teammates in terms of the energy that they were bringing in because a lot of them were Olympians and had played at that level a lot longer than me as a rookie in the league my first season. But I'll never forget is just, yeah, everything that we're talking about in terms of the presence, because that was very much a narrative in that locker room too. And that's why I think that conscious leadership is becoming the table stakes for navigating what this modern day world is requiring of all of us to some extent, right? But we're
Yeah.
up against the amygdala and everything you just talked about in terms of our negativity bias and all of that wants to pull us away from the helm, wants to pull us away from the moment. So how do we stay in the moment when we're under so much pressure and such accelerated change?
Well, that's the beautiful thing is that you can actually train yourself to be more in the moment. Um, and that's one of the steps. It's that you are here, and there's different things you can do on a daily basis to catch yourself drifting and draw yourself back in. I think one of the big misnomers for high performance is that these athletes, these executives, they don't get distracted. They're super focused. Well, of course they get distracted. Everybody gets distracted. It's they catch themselves being distracted quicker and they draw themselves back in to being focused. Is they have this power of noticing. And you can train that. You can train that every single day. You can train that by going outside, taking 10 minutes. You don't have to go outside. You can go sit in your living room and you can close your eyes and you can breathe for 5 minutes. And here you are, and you start breathing. I'm going to focus on my breath. And you start breathing and you get distracted from your breathing because that's what the brain does. It's going to distract you and things are going to happen. And then you notice that you've been distracted and you draw yourself back in to your breath. And you've just done one deadlift for the power of noticing, right? That's it. And you do that for 5 minutes, you do that for 10 minutes a day, you're going to get stronger at being able to notice when you've drifted. That's the key. That's the key. It's not this, I have to be 100% locked in, focused, no distractions for 8 hours a day. Like that's impossible. That's insane. Your brain would like melt. The big thing is to just notice again, the power of noticing. Notice when you're drifting, draw yourself back in over and over and over again. And you can train that.
I love that we're talking about mindfulness in the context of high performance, and we're
Yeah.
even referring to like the highest levels of sport, because this is again what I'm trying to make the case for. It's all brain training,
Yes, it is
right? And
100%.
and I just think like that's what you and I align on so much, right? Is like when it comes to all of this in terms of performance management, it really comes down to how well you have learned to train that brain intentionally, consistently, reliably on the daily, like you said. And there's there's totally a cumulative effect to that, no different than getting in the gym, that I think is the hardest part for corporate leaders to trust. I think the thing that we're up against the most, right, is the amygdala. When we're in disruptions, that's what literally gets triggered, right? And that is the thing that convinces us that we don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time. And that's the biggest point of resistance that I see, and I'm sure maybe you see too. Do you fear that resistance a lot in terms of this modern day world that we live in?
Yeah, the I don't have time thing is massive, and what's really and also to the I'm being pulled in 50,000 different directions. I don't know if you get
Mm-hmm.
that one too, Susan, but I hear that
Mm-hmm.
one all the time too. And I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that's really interesting is the best executives I've had the opportunity to work around, they schedule time to be quiet for themselves. They literally put it into their calendar. They schedule 15 minutes, no interruptions, no phone, walk around the block. They schedule 30 minutes to go to the gym and just be with themselves in the gym and not have their phone on them. And so what ends up happening for those people is they invest that quiet time because they come back more focused, more energized, and able to be more productive. And so even oh, I can't take a break. You almost have to take a break to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, otherwise you'll end up on the sidelines and you'll be benching
Yes.
benching yourself, because like
Yes.
we know that that's predictable too. I call it the tick tick ticking time bomb. It's like, okay,
Oh
we'll
yeah.
just let your amygdala keep running the show, and then eventually you're gonna have to take a break because you're gonna be burnt out. Or you're going to start to hit the glass ceiling in terms of you're not going to be able to keep ascending and realizing more and more of your potential
Yeah.
cognitively, like everything that we're
Absolutely.
talking about that we're pulling literally from the science of peak state and flow is exactly the same thing that's going on in a leader's intense day-to-day experience. I think leaders are like professional athletes. They need to train their consciousness in the same ways.
I call them the corporate athlete. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very much like the same things that they're up against and the same things that they have to navigate from a mindset perspective strategically, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is like, if they don't hit their sales quota for the quarter, yeah, they're going to, it's going to be known and they're going to have a conversation about it, but it's not on a 40-foot, billboard in center field with 35,000 people looking at it every night. That's, I
Yeah,
think, a little
right.
bit of the difference, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do. And there's a lot of pressures too. And, one of the biggest things that I see too is the ability to separate to separate their identity from here I am in this work environment. And one of the things that this particular society has right now is the inability to shut off. And so the
Mm-hmm.
phone
Mm-hmm.
follows you everywhere, the emails follow you everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's that sometimes too is really really crucial for the executives that I see that thrive, is they really say, hey, listen, no, this period of time I am not available, I am with my
Mm-hmm.
family. this
Mm-hmm.
is this is what's most important right now. And
Mm-hmm.
those emails are going to be there in the morning and I'll get to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more successful the leader that I see that I work with, the stronger the boundaries.
Yeah,
And
boundaries,
that
that's a great word for it.
Yeah, because that tightens up the alignment, right? And I just think like that's part of what we learn as we go through this ascension journey, and I think if you plan to go the distance in that ascension journey in terms of realizing that potential, then it's inevitably the lessons that you learn when you hit the brick walls known as burnout,
Yeah.
right? Or you
Yep.
start to hit the glass ceiling in terms of your cognitive capacity, even. It just starts to become more and more requisite in order for you to be able to sustain the levels that you're actually realizing. Josh, the place I'd like to land the plane today is if you could give our audience of conscious leaders any advice in terms of where to start to win today, what would that advice be?
Well, we've mentioned it multiple times already on the podcast, but the biggest thing is really being conscious about deciding who you want to be in the world today. Just every day, taking that time in the morning literally takes about 20 seconds to do, and just decide, "Hey, this is how I'm going to go through today. Today, my choice was to be peaceful and focused." That was it. peaceful and focused. So, you know, I think I've done that pretty good so far today.
I'd say so.
And but that was I decided that this morning on my dog walk, right? And just
Mhm.
take that 20 seconds, choose a when and a where to decide it, right? You could do, hey, I'm doing it when I'm shaving in the morning, or I'm, getting out of the shower, or I'm making breakfast, or I'm making my coffee, and just choose a when and a where, and then decide how you're going to be. And the more times you do that, the more control you're going to have kind of over your life.
I love how you really oriented that around choice, because that's really what conscious leadership is all about to me in terms of why it's become the table stakes for our leaders' development. It's like understanding that we have to get conscious because that's where new choice lives. But when we actually get conscious and make the choice proactively,
Yes.
consciously, then it sets everything else in motion in alignment. We just talked about alignment and the power of alignment, the importance of alignment for leaders, right? So much of what comes the rest of the day is driven by our autopilot. But yeah, there's a lot of power in just stepping to that helm consciously to make that choice of orientation in terms of who you want to be in the world. And then like really trusting that your subconscious mind is going to show up in ways that are going to make that happen.
Yep.
I can't wait for people to read this book. So June 9th is when it is released.
Yes.
Whereabouts is this book going to be found? I know we're going to keep that we're going to have all the links in the show notes, but I want to mention it on air too.
Yeah, definitely. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Waterstones for any listeners overseas. So those are going to be the big ones. You can go on to joshualifrak.com, Lifrak, joshualifrak.com, and there's all the links are in there too. And there's a little giveaway there too, some audio files you can
Woo!
download, some meditations even. Oh, look
I
out.
I can't
So
wait to get my copy in hand. I know this is one I'm definitely going to be having all my clients check out. And if anybody wants to continue this conversation with you on the sidelines, because I'm kind of feeling like you might have some folks wanting to reach out and ask you more,
yeah,
where can they find you?
you get me on LinkedIn, Joshua Lifrak, Lifrak. Just ping me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message, and I'll be glad to engage in a conversation with you all. I love it.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to make sure we have all those links in the show notes so we make it really easy for you to find Josh on the sidelines and connect. Josh, thank you so much for coming in today and riffing with me on all things conscious leadership in the context of high performance. This is my favorite thing these days. Nothing I love more than having these very conscious conversations with experts like you. Is there any final thought you want to leave with our audience before we let them go?
With purpose on purpose, with purpose on purpose. And if you can get to that, that'll really help start defining your life versus living that life by default. Thank you
Amazing.
so much for having me on, Susan. I really appreciate the conversation today.
Well, thank you for helping me realize my purpose and mission that I'm on to, this conscious leadership revolution for me is all about changing the way we're playing the game by all the things that we talked about in today's episode. So I know this is going to serve that mission oh so much. For everybody out there listening who's curious to learn more, you can check out everything we got going on in our conscious leadership locker rooms over at the website elitehighperformance.com. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.